I love everything about my wife, but one day, while sitting in the car, she unwittingly shattered the illusion. It happened so quickly and unexpectedly that I assumed I was dreaming. Madison was scrolling through her phone while I adjusted the air conditioning in the passenger seat, completely relaxed. Then her thumb slipped, not in a spectacular cinematic fashion, but just a minor careless slip of the finger. But that was sufficient, enough for me to see a message appear, just one with a name I didn't recognize. "Ethan, I can't quit thinking about last night." The statements were straightforward and direct, sitting between us like an open wound. I said nothing at first. My mind was racing, flipping through mental files for every Ethan I could think of. Coworker, client, friend of a friend. No, Ethan. And certainly not one who had a last night to ponder about with his wife. My pulse quickened. I looked at her. She was still glancing at her phone, but now she is typing. I didn't even have to read the message to realize that wasn't the type of response a married woman should send to another man. Something overtook me. I didn't realize I was moving until my hand shot out and grabbed the phone straight out of her grasp. "Who is Ethan?" Madison jerked as if I had just splashed icy water on her. Her head snapped at me, eyes wide, mouth slightly parted, and for a split second I saw it. That moment of sheer, undiluted panic. Then it vanished, to be replaced by something else very immediately. Annoyance. "What the hell, Adam? Give me my phone." She reached for it, but I pulled it away. My heart was thumping, banging against my ribs, and I knew beforehand, but I wanted to hear her say it. "Who is Ethan?" I inquired again, my tone dangerously steady. Madison exhaled and rolled her eyes, as if I had just accused her of something dumb, such as forgetting to take out the garbage. Jesus and Adam. He's only a friend. Can't you stop being so darn dramatic? A friend? A friend could not stop thinking about last night. I flipped the phone to read the rest of the chat. Madison went for it, but I quickly avoided her while checking the screen. My vision became hazy around the corners. Rage, tunneling, my focus. "Then you look great. I wished we had more time." "Madison, I agree. I miss you already." My stomach twisted. A terrible, twisting sensation crept up my throat. She already missed him. Already? How long has it been? Hours. Less. Madison was talking, her voice angry and defensive, but I was unable to digest the words. I could only hear a dull ringing in my ears. Then she did something to make my blood run cold. She laughed. Not a nervous or ashamed chuckle, rather a laugh. "And you are incredibly foolish." Laugh. "Oh my God, Adam, you are mad right now." She took the phone from my hands and stuffed it into her lap. "It's not as you think." "Jesus, you've been so paranoid lately." Paranoid? That is the word she picked. "Not sorry. Do not let me explain. Not. I can repair it." I glanced at her, barely recognizing the woman before me, because at that point it was no longer about Ethan. It was not about the texts. It was about the way she stared at me, like if I were the problem. I felt like an idiot for capturing her. Then, without breaking eye contact, she went for the gear shift and shifted the car into drive. "We're going home," she explained. Her voice was cut at the end. "I am not doing this with you right now." And just like that, the conversation ended, or so she thought. But I wasn't finished, not even close. The drive home was terrible. The air inside the automobile felt thick, heavy, as if I were drowning in it. Madison maintained her focus on the road, her fingers gripping the steering wheel just a little too tightly. Her jaw clenched in that stubborn manner she had when she thought she was winning an argument. Because that is what this was for her. And debate, not a confession. This is not an apology. Just another trivial fight she intended to bulldoze through until I gave up. But I wasn't about to give up. Not this time. I stared at her, waiting for her to say something, waiting for anything resembling remorse, regret, guilt, or even a non-lazy lie. But she didn't say anything. I just turned on the radio like it was any other night. The arrogance of that seared through me. Pull over. She ignored me. Madison. My voice was steady, too calm for what I was feeling. I said, pull over. She inhaled sharply and shook her head. For what? So you can continue to act wild. I told you to pull over. Perhaps it was how I stated it. Maybe she understood I wasn't going to let it go in any way. She threw out an exaggerated sigh before swerving into the nearest parking lot, a rundown gas station with flickering lights and a broken ice machine. I started unbuckling my seatbelt as soon as she put the car in park. I turned my complete attention to her. Tell me the truth, she said, raking her fingers over her hair. I told you the truth. He is a friend. Bullshit. I leaned in. My heartbeat was beating in my ears. Do you think I'm an idiot? She smirked and shook her head. You are acting like one. I tightened my jaw so tightly that it hurt. Let me see the texts. No. And with that, I knew. Not that I didn't already know, but the way she phrased it was particularly damning. There was no hesitancy, no feigned perplexity, and no frantic attempts to conceal her identity. Only a flat, unwavering. No, she wasn't even trying to persuade me anymore. Something inside of me cracked. Are you really serious? I threw out a sour laugh and shook my head. You're not even going to pretend. You're simply going to sit there, look me in the eye, and lie. I am not lying. She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms over her chest, like a rebellious teen caught sneaking away. You're overreacting. What exactly are you blowing? Out in proportion. I threw up my hands because you were talking to another guy behind my back. Do you miss him already? That he can't get his mind off of last night? She flinched slightly, but hid it with a huff. Jesus and Adam, it is not. Do you sleep with him? That caught her for the first time since this began. Her expression altered, just a spark of something. Hesitation, guilt, perhaps even fear. But it was there. She swallowed and looked away, her fingers drumming against her knee. I waited. The quiet between us was like a sword. Finally. You really want to do this here? She murmured. I took out a short breath and shook my head. You're unbelievable. I haven't slept with him, she continued, her voice suddenly softer, as if she was attempting to persuade herself rather than me. It isn't like that. I gave her a deadpan stare. Do you expect me to believe that? She raised her chin. Yes. And that was all. That was the moment I recognized her for who she truly was. Not the woman I assumed I knew. Not my wife or best friend. A stranger sat in the driver's seat, lying through her teeth and expecting me to swallow it like I always did. I opened the door and stepped outside. Where are you going? I said. Home, but not with you. I slammed the door shut before she could speak again. I walked. I had no idea where I was heading, so I walked. The gas station was on the corner of a dimly lit street, and the air was thick with humid pre-storm tension. My fists were clenched so tight that my nails dug into my palms, but I didn't notice. My mind was a chaos. I kept seeing those texts, Madison's blank stare, and the way she walked away when I questioned her. I heard a car door bang behind me. Oh, for God's sake, Adam! Her voice was harsh, cutting through the darkness like a razor. Are you really going to storm off like a child? I did not stop. Didn't even look back. Adam! Her footsteps thumped against the sidewalk as she dashed after me. A second later, she grabbed my arm. Could you just pause for a second? I jerked my arm away and spun to face her. Why? So you can continue to lie to me? She let out a furious grunt and pushed a hand through her hair. Oh my God, you're turning this into a major dramatic event when it isn't. I let out a hollow laugh, my chest rising and falling like I had just completed a marathon. Not a tremendous deal. I moved closer and lowered my voice. You are messing around with another guy behind my back? Madison. She flinched, just barely. But I caught it. She then rolled her eyes again, which irritated her to no end. Oh my God, Adam, I am not messing around with anybody, really. I crossed my arms. Then explain exactly what happened last night. She squeezed her lips together, her eyes shifting away. I laughed dryly. Yes, that is what I thought. She sighed again, scratching her temples as if I were the one causing her headache. You know what? Fine. Want to know what happened? Nothing. We talked. We had a few beers. Okay. Maybe we flirted a little. But you flirted. I snapped and stepped closer. Are you kidding me? It was not serious. She responded by shouting back, Jesus and Adam, stop acting like I killed someone. I was simply having fun. It did not signify anything. Didn't mean anything. I stared at her. I'm feeling something inside of me, cracked wide open. You're unbelievable. She took out a loud breath and shook her head. I don't see why you're unhappy because you cheated, Madison. The word tasted like poison in my mouth. You cheated on me and don't have the decency to admit it. Her lips parted for a second. Just a second. I thought I had seen something real. A shard of guilt. But then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. She smiled. Not a pleasant smile, not a guilty one. A condescending smile. You are so pathetic. Smile. You're so dramatic, she said, bending her head. It was only a little fun. I could hardly breathe. I barely think. A little fun. She shrugged. You are overreacting. I took a leisurely step back and looked at her as if she were a stranger. And perhaps she was. Perhaps she had been for a long time. And I was just too blind to notice. I do not even know who you are, I whispered. She sighed, frustrated, and crossed her arms. Please, don't act like you're an innocent little victim. You're just upset because someone else got my attention and you can't handle it. I went still. She smirked. Isn't that what this is actually about? You are insecure. My eyesight blurred with wrath. Insecure. Not betrayed, not heartbroken. Insecure. I took one final look at her. The woman I had loved. I had trusted her. And then I turned and went away. This time she did not follow me. That I did not go home. I had no idea where I was heading, but I knew I could not return to that house. Her perfume clung to the blankets. Her laugh echoed in the walls, and every room served as a reminder of how deep this betrayal had gone. My legs carried me down the street, past flickering streetlights and shuttered businesses, until I arrived at a tavern with neon beer signs in the windows and a jukebox, playing old rock tunes just loud enough to drown out your thoughts. Perfect. I strolled inside, barely noticing the smell of cheap liquor and fried food. The place was half empty, only a few dispersed groups. A couple of males crouched over the bar, while a bartender wiped out glasses. I walked directly to the counter and sat on a stool. What will it be? The bartender inquired, scarcely looking up. Whiskey? My voice sounded unfamiliar to me. Flat drainage. The glass was in front of me, within seconds. I swallowed it without thinking, allowing the fire to scrape down my throat. It did not help. I indicated for another. I scarcely noticed when someone sat down next to me. But then, it was a tough night. The voice was nice. Vaguely amused. I tilted my head slightly to see a woman in her mid-30s with a raised brow, blonde hair, and piercing eyes that missed nothing. She mixed a cocktail slowly, her red, painted nails tapping on the glass. I breathed through my nose, something like that. She smirked. Let me guess. Wife trouble? I laughed without humor. You could say that. She tilted her head, eyes shine. Did she cheat? That made me pause. I gave her my entire attention and studied her face. How the hell did you know that? She shrugged and took a sip from her drink. Call it a talent. I shook my head and laughed angrily. Yeah, she cheated. The words flowed more easily this time. Saying things aloud made them feel more genuine and permanent. The woman clicked her tongue and left me guessing. She lied about it. Made you feel like you were the insane one. I blinked for a second. I nearly assumed she knew Madison and had been in the car with us. Did you hear everything said during that fight? Yes, I admitted. This is exactly what she did. She smirked, swirling her drink. Textbook. I frowned. You sound as if you have seen this before. She gave a half shrug, glanced toward the door as if she was considering speaking more. Finally, let's just say I've had my fair share of dishonest marriages. Something about how she said it. Cool. She measured as if she were holding something back. Activated my curiosity. But before I could ask any further questions, she leaned closer. She lowered her voice. Do you still love her? My stomach turned. I do not know. She hummed. What prevents you from leaving? That made me pause. Not because I didn't have the answer, but because I did. And I despised it. I ran a hand down my face. I don't understand it. Why do individuals do this when they're unhappy? If you prefer someone else, why not simply leave? The woman smiled, but not with her eyes, because people like it. She leaned in slightly, her speech sounding almost secretive. They do not want to leave. They simply want to see how much they can get away with. A shiver rushed down my spine because I knew deep down she was correct. Madison was not sorry. She was not ashamed. She had not even attempted to fib, because she did not have to. She had already decided I was not going anywhere. The realization sank into my chest, hard and stifling, and that's when I realized I needed to prove her wrong. I can't remember leaving the bar. 1 minute I was sitting there, that woman's comments cutting through me like a razor. The next time I was outside, the chilly air slapped my face as I pulled out my phone. My hands were stable now. My thoughts were clear. Madison was mistaken if she believed I would simply roll over and accept this. I scanned through my contacts and phoned a name I hadn't called in months. It only rang twice before he picked Adam up. Josh's voice sounded drowsy and bewildered. Dude, it's nearly midnight. I need you to allow me to crash at your apartment. I made no small talk, no explanations, just a pause. So what happened? She cheated. Silence. Then low and ferocious. Are you kidding me? I let out a breath. I wish. Move your ass over here. I hung up and began walking. Josh lived about 15 minutes away, and I appreciated the distance and the time to breathe. But with each step, the wrath increased. Because when the shock wore off, I remembered how she had distanced herself from me during the last few months. The abrupt excuses, the strange, quiet moments when she stared at her phone, smirking at messages I never saw. I should have realized it sooner, but I didn't because I trusted her. And now she was presumably lounging at home, sipping wine on the couch, fully unconcerned, maybe even text him and inform him about our fight. I clenched my fist. She smirked at me and laughed. She had looked me in the face and made me feel foolish for catching her. I was not going to let her win. When I arrived at Josh's apartment, he was already at the door, arms crossed. Tell me exactly what I did. I informed him about the texts. She giggled when I challenged her, the way she treated me like I was insane. Josh listened intently, his jaw tightening as I spoke. When I finished, he exhaled sharply. That is absurd. I nodded. Yeah. She did not even attempt to dispute it. Oh, she tried. It's just not that hard. Josh shakes his head. Man, what is the plan? That was the question, right? I had to leave her. It wasn't even a question anymore. However, simply leaving felt incomplete, as if it let her off the hook. She believed she could embarrass me and walk away unscathed. I needed her to feel how I was feeling. A setback. Thinking. You've still got that, buddy. Who does the work? Josh frowned. Yeah. Why? I looked him dead in the eyes. I want to learn everything. Josh's eyes widened before slowly curling his lips into a grin. Oh, he replied, nodding. That is a really nice idea. Josh's friend Mark was exactly the type of person you wanted when you needed dirt on someone. Quiet and unassuming, but dangerous with technology. He's the type of man who could find out what you ate for breakfast 3 years ago if he wanted to. We met at a diner the next morning. I hadn't slept yet, didn't feel exhausted. I felt electrified, with adrenaline still vibrating beneath my skin, keeping me alert. Mark stepped into the booth across from me, and Josh sipped his coffee as if it were just another normal Saturday morning. Josh did not waste time. "Do you think you can get into Madison's stuff?" Mark raised his brow, looking for something. Phone, email, socials, I want it all. Mark had a sip of coffee. "Considering that depends. Have you got access to her devices?" I tightened my jaw. "Yeah. Madison never hid her passwords from me, not because she trusted me, but because she never expected me to check. She'd grown comfortable." Mark smirked. "Then this will be easy." I slid her laptop across the table. "Start with this." It took Mark less than 20 minutes to access her accounts once he did. My gut knotted because I wasn't going to just admit she cheated. I was going to see just how deep this went. Mark went through her messages first. My heart pounded, and there it was. "Ethan, I cannot wait to see you again." "When did he go?" "Madison. Next weekend. I'll tell him I'm on a work retreat. We'll have the entire house to ourselves." Josh cursed beneath his breath as I remained still. "Is she bringing him to your house?" I gritted my teeth. "What about our house?" Mark continued scrolling. Ethan was not the only one. There was another Ryan and another Chris. All of them convey the same flirtatious, intimate messages. Different names, identical pattern. She'd been doing this for months, possibly longer. I leaned back in the booth and stared at the television. Jesus Christ. Josh gripped his coffee mug so tightly that I thought it may shatter. She is a serial cheater. I let out a nasty laugh and was concerned about one individual. Mark looked at me. "Do you want to keep going?" I breathed through my nose. "Is my mind racing?" "No," I said finally. "I have seen enough." Josh shakes his head, furious. "So what happens now? Divorce?" I stared at him, then at Mark, and finally back at the messages. Then I smiled. "Oh, I am going to divorce her," I replied, "but first, I'm going to wreck her life." The plan came together quickly. I didn't want to just abandon her. I wanted to shatter the small universe she created while she was making a fool of me. Mark was more than willing to help. He pulled everything: texts, emails, call logs, and even deleted communications. Every lie, every meeting. I had every excuse: timestamps, screenshots, locations. She felt she was intelligent. She believed she was cautious. She was neither. And the best part? She hadn't realized she'd already lost. That night I went home. Madison sat on the couch, legs folded up, sipping a glass of wine as if nothing had happened. When I went in, she barely looked up from her phone. "Look who has finally decided to quit sulking," she replied, smirking. I nearly laughed. She still believed she had the upper hand. I dropped my keys on the counter and sat across from her, sitting back as if nothing mattered. She raised an eyebrow. "What?" I smiled. "Are you free next weekend?" It threw her off. "What?" "I was thinking we should go on a trip." I tilted my head and kept a careful eye on her. "Just the two of us get away for a while, for only a second." Something sparked in her eyes. Panic. Then she scoffed. She rolled her eyes. "God, you're desperate." I shrugged. "Come on, let's have some fun. A weekend away. It's just me and you. No work, no distractions." She gave an exaggerated sigh and shook her head. "Adam, I've previously told you about my business retreat next weekend." I grinned. "Oh, right." I took out my phone, scrolled, and turned the screen towards her. "Madison, next weekend. I'll tell him I'm on a work retreat. We'll have the entire house to ourselves." Her entire face altered. She became rigid. Her gaze fixed on the television, her lips parted slightly. "Go on." I said, "Tell me about your work retreat." Her breath hitched just little. but I caught it. Then, like the miserable liar that she was, she laughed loudly, as if she still believed she could talk her way out of this situation. "Oh my God, Adam, are you snooping on me now?" I didn't stop smiling. "I am spying right now. Are you getting caught?" "Yeah." She rolled her eyes. But there was something fresh about her expression now, something tight. This is incredibly foolish. I hummed while scrolling again. What part? I am aware of Ethan, or the fact that I know Ryan and Chris as well. Silence. Dead. Suffocating. Silence. I paid special attention to her face. Her fingers curled around her wine glass. Her jaw clenched, and then she tossed it. It broke against the wall. Deep red streaks ran down the paint like blood. "I cannot believe you looked through my belongings," she yelled. Jumping to her feet, I remained sat, absolutely calm. "I can't believe you are a cheating, lying piece of rubbish." Her face twisted with wrath. "You had no rights." I stood and cut her off. "No, right? You have no right to find out. My wife has been deceiving many men behind my back." I gave a harsh laugh. "Are you listening to yourself right now?" She scoffed and crossed her arms. "You are so theatrical." I shook my head and chuckled. "You know what? Keep thinking about that." I moved closer and lowered my voice, because I want Madison to feel safe. I want you to believe you still have control. I leaned in, my voice even lower, because when everything blows up in your face, I want to watch the exact moment you know you've lost, and this is the first time ever. Madison appeared afraid. She opened her mouth and then closed it. For the first time in our whole relationship, Madison had nothing to say. No snide remark, condescending grin, or sloppy lie to toss at me. Only pure, undiluted dread flickered behind her eyes. I wanted to appreciate it. I let the silence stretch. I am watching her progress. The truth of the situation. Watching her experience the weight of what was to come. Finally, she scoffed and crossed her arms over her chest, like a spoiled child. "So what? Did you find any texts?" "A big deal." I grinned. "Oh dear, you've no idea." "I did not just find texts," I said with a pleasant voice. "I've found everything." Her nostrils flared. "You're not telling the truth." I took out my phone, tapped the screen, and allowed the proof to play a recording. One among many. Ethan's voice was loud and clear. "God, last night was incredible, I swear. If I have to hear about your husband once more." Madison's voice was quieter yet clear. "Shut up. He has no idea." I pressed pause. She froze. I tilted my head. Continued to accuse me of bluffing. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. I took a slow stride forward. "Here's the deal, Madison. I know who you've been screwing behind my back. I know how long this has been going on. I've heard about the phony work trips and the unexpected overtime for girls' nights that never occurred." I dragged another file on the screen. A spreadsheet organized and documented Chris 4 times. Ethan, too numerous to count. Ryan. You hardly lasted a month with him. I let out a quiet giggle and shake my head. You truly believed you were untouchable. Her face twisted wildly. Something panicked. "You're crazy." "No, Madison," I replied softly, stepping closer. "I'm done being your idiot." Her breathing was uneven now, and her hands trembled slightly at her sides. But she still had that defiance in her eyes, as if she believed she could fight her way out of this. "Okay?" She spoke abruptly, her voice forcefully steady. "You've got me. I botched up, but we can solve it." I laughed, really laughed. "Fix it." She nodded swiftly and stepped toward me, her entire posture altering. The wrath was gone, replaced by a calculating desperation. "Adam, please listen." She spoke in a smooth, charming tone that she always used to manipulate me. "We've been together for years. Are you really going to throw everything away over this?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, now there's this." "Just a minor error, right?" She forced a weak, pathetic smile. You know I adore you. And there it was, the final play, the final desperate attempt to maintain power. I let out a deep breath and stared at her. Then I smiled. Do you adore me? I repeated. She nodded fast and gladly. Of course. Cool. I brought up another document on my phone. Then you'll adore this. I rotated the screen to face her. Her face plummeted. The divorce papers had already been drawn up, already signed, filed this morning. Her breath caught. What the hell is this? I smiled wider. Your freedom. She seized the phone from my grasp, scrolling feverishly. You cannot be serious. Oh, I am extremely serious. I took the phone back. I'm keeping it for myself. I do not require your signature, by the way. The infidelity clause covers this. Her mouth opened and then closed shut. Her entire body turned stiff, and her intellect struggled to keep up. I leaned in one more time, my voice lowered to a whisper. I hope Ethan has an extra room, I murmured, because you've been homeless since Monday. Her eyes widened. And before you think of asking your boyfriends for help, I smirked. I've already emailed them everything. They now know every text, every call log, and every dirty little secret about one another. Her entire body froze up. She stumbled back and shook her head. You did not. I shrugged. Oh, I did. Madison eventually broke. She yelled and pushed everything off the coffee table in one wild sweep. Glass broke, papers flew, wine had fallen onto the floor, but I was already walking away since I had won. She was still crying as I got upstairs. I could hear her pacing here, panicked gasps, the way she kept saying no, no, no under her breath, like if she could undo all I'd done. She could not. This was checkmate. I went into my bedroom and retrieved a duffel bag from the closet. I didn't need much, just enough to last me a few days as I planned my next move. But this house, she was the one who left. I could still hear her downstairs, her voice rising and falling in quick bursts, calling. Ethan, Ryan, Chris, probably trying to save what was remained of her miserable little kingdom. I allowed her. I packed my belongings. I took my time. Let her stew in the mess she made, then quick footsteps. A second later, she was standing in the doorway. Her face was crazy red and blotchy, and her hair was a tangled mess from raking her hands through it too many times. For the first time since it began, she appeared entirely unhinged. You ruined my life, she screamed. I scarcely looked up. No, Madison, I said, zipping my purse closed. Did you do that? She let out a strained breath and clenched her hands. You do not comprehend. I had everything under control. I laughed, really laughed. Oh my God, you are absolutely insane. Her nostrils flared. I had them separated. I had rules. And then you, she yelled angrily, grabbing her hair tightly. You exposed me as a liar. I finished for her. A cheater, a terrible excuse for a wife. I moved closer, my voice dropping. Because it is exactly who you are. Her entire body vibrated with wrath. You are just bitter. You could not please me. Therefore, I had to go somewhere. I snorted. Is that what you're going to tell yourself to get some sleep at night? She smirked. Breath is still heaving. I don't need to tell myself anything. I can get another man tomorrow, someone better. I leaned in and smiled. So why are you still here? Her smirk disappeared. I remained silent, allowing the realization to sink in. She had no one. The guys she thought adored her were gone. The marriage she thought she had control over, along with the house she thought she owned, is no longer hers. Her entire world had shattered in one night. She knew it. Her lower lip shook, and her hands tightened at her sides. She opened her mouth, most likely intending to say something nasty or hurtful. I just grinned again. You are pathetic, I said, and I'm not going to waste another second on you. Then I took my luggage and walked away. She did not follow me. The cold air smacked my face the moment I went outside. It felt strange, cleaner. lighter. It seemed as if I had just dropped 1,000 pounds of weight from my shoulders. Because I did. I walked to my car, placed my luggage in the back seat, and slid behind the wheel. I anticipated to feel something: anger, remorse, and perhaps even despair. But all I felt was inner tranquility. Madison was probably still standing there, trying to figure out how her entire world had collapsed in less than 24 hours. I smirked. I'd warned her. She looked me in the eye and laughed. Had treated me as if I were nothing. I assumed I was too weak and miserable to fight back, and suddenly she was alone. No lovers, no security, there's no backup plan. I started the car. My phone buzzed, but I didn't have to look. I already knew who it was. Madison, her final desperate try. I let it ring. Then, at the last second, I heard nothing. Then her voice softened, desperate. "Adam?" I said nothing. She sniffed. "Please, I did not mean click." I hung up. I blocked her number. I deleted every single message. Then, without looking back at the house we formerly shared, I pulled into the road and drove away. For the first time in a long time, I was truly free. Here's the next story. I arrived home earlier than usual that day. It was not intended, just one of those lucky breaks in which traffic cooperates and meetings are canceled. As I parked into the driveway, I noticed something unusual. Jessica's automobile was there. That seemed weird. She had informed me that she would be working late. My first thought was not suspicion. There was perplexity. Perhaps she got unwell and returned home early. Perhaps she forgot something. But as I approached the house, I noticed something else. The drapes in our bedroom were drawn closed. That was the second unusual thing. Jessica enjoyed natural light. She despised closed blinds throughout the day. I stepped inside, and the home seemed strangely silent. No television, no music. Only the tiniest sound of movement came from upstairs. My stomach stiffened. That primordial instinct kicked in before my brain could respond. I moved silently, my shoes scarcely making a sound on the hardwood floors. As I approached the steps, I heard something. A low, muffled voice, but clearly male. For a little while, my brain refused to process it. Perhaps she had the television on in the bedroom. Perhaps she was on call. Maybe. Then I overheard her chuckle. That delicate, breathy laugh I used to believe was only for me. Something within me cracked. I wasn't thinking anymore. I took 2 steps at a time. My heart was pounding so fiercely that it seemed like it might break my ribs. I reached our bedroom door. It was not even locked. I pushed it open, and there she was. Jessica. My wife is in our bed with a guy. Time slowed. Everything became incredibly plain. The stench of sweat and perfume permeates the air. The sheets were knotted. Jessica's expression as she spun around, eyes wild, mouth open, but no words came out. The client, a younger-looking dude with a foolish smirk, sat there for a second, as if his brain couldn't quite process that he was about to have his face changed. I did not say anything. I've simply moved. My fist collided with his jaw before he could respond. He let out a miserable shriek as he toppled from the bed and landed hard on the floor. Jessica shouted, rushing to hide herself as if this were the problem. "What the hell, David?" She screamed like if I was in the wrong. I could barely hear her. My entire life had fallen into a state of wrath and betrayal. The guy groaned on the floor and held his face. I didn't care. My gaze was fixed on Jessica. How long? My voice was too calm. She paused. "How long?" I roared, causing her to flinch. She looked away and murmured, "A few months." "Several months." I laughed, a hollow and bitter item. While I was at work, I was paying for this home. While I was. It isn't like that. She interrupted abruptly, finding her voice. "You do not comprehend." "Oh, I understand completely," I snapped. "I recognize that you are a liar, a cheater, nasty and sad. Do not talk to me like that." She yelled, suddenly outraged, as if she were the victim here. "Perhaps if you listened to me, this would not have happened." He was staring here. I actually felt something inside myself break. Not in a dramatic, poetic way, in a very serious and definitive way. The part of me that loved her, trusted her, and cared. It has just died. I rolled on my heel, storming out of the room. She called after me, but I did not stop. I didn't trust myself to avoid doing something I'd later regret. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. I did not leave the house. Not yet. No. It would have been too easy for her. Too convenient. I wanted her to feel it. To sit among the ruins of what she had just destroyed. I stormed downstairs. My blood is still boiling. My hands shook from the adrenaline. I needed to do something. Anything to prevent myself from returning up there and hurling that idiot out the window. My gaze landed on the liquor cabinet. Perfect. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey, poured myself a glass, and drank it down in one gulp. It hurt like hell, but it kept me grounded. My mind was rushing, but one notion stuck out, clear and sharp. She had the audacity to accuse me. I paced the living room, going over every detail of the previous few months, looking for clues that I had missed: the late nights, the sudden fascination with her phone, the strange mood swings. Everything was right in front of me the entire time, and I had been too darn blind to notice it. Upstairs I heard movement, the quiet voices of two guilty people figuring out their next move. Then footsteps. She was going down. I turned to face the staircase right as Jessica appeared, now dressed in a robe, her face flushed with a combination of fury and shame. "We need to talk," she murmured, folding her arms. I laughed briefly and without humor. "Talk? Oh, you want to talk?" She breathed sharply. "David, where is he?" I interrupted. She paused. "Where is he?" She exhaled. "He exited through the back." "Of course he did. Coward." I came closer, my voice becoming dangerously calm. "Tell me something, Jessica. Did you ever feel guilty? Just a second." Her jaw clenched. "It is not that straightforward, it is not." I scoffed. "Enlighten me, then. What aspect of screwing a strange person in our bed is complicated?" She threw up her hands. "You do not get it." "I felt lonely, David. You are usually so remote. So focused on work, everything but me. I needed." I slapped my glass down on the table so forcefully that I feared it might break. "Do not blame me for this." She flinched, but I was not finished. "I have worked extremely hard for this family. For you. I gave you everything. Instead of talking to me or saying anything, you chose to spread your legs for some random piece of trash." Her face contorted with wrath. "You don't speak to me like that. Oh, you can disgrace me. You can convert our house and our bed into a dirt-cheap motel. And I am just meant to be civil?" She did not respond since there was nothing to say. I took a long breath, attempting to quiet the inferno in my chest. "You know what? Fine. I am done talking. We'll let the attorneys handle it." Her eyes expanded. "Wait. What?" "You have heard me," I said, grabbing my keys. "We're finished." She grabbed my arm. "David, please wait." I yanked free, my voice turning to ice. "Do not touch me." Then I stepped out the door, and that was only the beginning. I did not drive away. Not yet. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached, my heart still pounding in my chest. My body was in fighting mode. Every muscle tenses and every nerve screams for action. My mind raced through everything that had just transpired. She made excuses. Her weak attempt to deflect blame. Everything was so outrageous. Jessica cheated in our house, in our bed, while I was out working my ass hard and trusting her, and she had the audacity to act like I was the problem. I needed to consider whether I needed a plan. But first, I wanted proof. My hands shook as I took out my phone. If she'd been messing around for months, there had to be proof. I wasn't going to let her trick me into believing I was imagining things. I signed on to our shared phone plan account. A list of recent calls and messages appeared. My heart almost stopped there. A number that is repeated nearly every day, at all hours. I copied and pasted it into the search bar. No name, only a number. Burner phone, work phone. I was unsure, but that didn't matter. I needed to see for myself. I got out of the car and slammed the door shut behind me. My view was tunneled. My pulse was a continuous roar in my ears. I was not only angry anymore, I was on a mission. When I returned to the house, Jessica was seated on the couch, her arms crossed and her leg bounced. She looked up, surprised because she hadn't expecting me to return so soon. "David, please listen," she began, but I held up my hand. "Shut up." Her jaw clamped shut and her gaze narrowed. "Excuse me?" I held up my phone. "Who the hell is this?" I demanded, showing her the number. Her face turned pallid. "I got you." "David, she began, but faltered. "Don't even try to lie." My voice was razor sharp. "Tell me who he is now." She paused, then she smirked. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just guilt. This was not a regret. She seemed to enjoy it. "Why do you care?" she said, tilting her head. "It is over, right? You made it extremely plain. My blood turned to fire. I care because I want to know how far this betrayal goes. Was he the only one, or were there others?" She breathed deeply and rolled her eyes. "God, you are so theatrical." "Fine. His name is Ryan. Ryan is satisfied." I swirled the name around in my mind, chewing on it like a piece of glass. "Who is he?" I inquired, speaking dangerously low. Her lips curved into an almost arrogant expression. "A friend." "A friend?" I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. "Right? The type of friend you screw while your husband is at work," she shrugged. "You were never home." He was. I saw red. She didn't even apologize. I took a long breath to steady myself. "You have until tomorrow to get out." She blinked. "What?" "You have heard me," I replied harshly. "I want you out of my home. I will box your belongings myself if necessary." She stood up, arms crossed. "So, now it's your house? Who pays for it?" I shot back. "Who wrote their name on every damn bill? Do you believe Ryan will pay your way? Go ahead. See how long it lasts." Her jaw clenched. "You can't simply kick me out, David." "Oh, pay attention to me." She gave me a long stare, and for the first time I noticed a fracture in her countenance. Perhaps she knew I wasn't lying. Perhaps she realized she had finally destroyed the last bridge. But just as quickly, she smoothed her face and gave forth a little laugh. "You're going to regret this." I took a step closer, bending in just enough to ensure she heard everything. "No, Jessica. Yes, you are." Then I turned away, leaving her stunned. But I wasn't finished yet. Definitely not. I was not the type of man who went hunting for vengeance. At least, I believed I wasn't. But I stood in the kitchen, staring at the woman who had burned down our entire marriage with no remorse. Something within me shifted. Jessica thought she could simply walk away from this. She felt she could discard me like yesterday's trash, play house with a loser and come away unhurt. She was wrong. She wanted war. Fine. I turned and proceeded towards the stairs. "Where are you going?" she demanded. I didn't respond. I did not need to. She followed in her footsteps. Quick, behind me. "David, please quit being dramatic. You're not kicking me out, and you won't." I entered our bedroom, threw open the closet, and began taking her belongings. Shoes, clothes, and the nice bags I bought for her were all dumped on the floor. Jessica's voice went up an octave. "Are you serious now?" I did not stop. I did not even look at her. "David, stop!" She grabbed my arm and tried to pull me back. I yanked my arm away so quickly that she stumbled. "Do not touch me." She scowled at me. Her breathing was heavy. "You are acting insane. No, you're simply upset because I've finally seen you for who you truly are." Her lips form a tiny line. I could see her pondering, trying to find out how to turn this to her advantage. Then, as if a switch had switched, she smirked. "You're only upset because you still love me," she said, tilting her head. I laughed. A dismal, humorless thing. "No, Jessica. I'm so upset because I squandered years of my life on a woman who never deserved it." She flinched for only a second. The mask was then reapplied automatically. She groaned theatrically and crossed her arms. Feeny, you want to have a tantrum? Go ahead, but I will not leave tonight. I paused and gently turned to face her. Oh, do you think you're sleeping here? She raised her chin. I know I am. You cannot just kick me out without notice. I have rights. I took a steady breath and gripped the edge of the dresser to keep from punching a hole in the wall. Do you honestly believe you can bang a guy in our bed? And then what? Crawl back into it as if nothing happened. She shrugged. Where else should I go? I smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Call Ryan for the first time since I apprehended her. She appeared uneasy. I raised an eyebrow. What is wrong? He was capable of screwing, but not of housing you. That's not right. She began, then shut herself off. I leaned in just slightly. Oh my God. He doesn't even know you're married, right? Silence. A slow, growing grin stretched across my face. He thinks you are single. Jessica's mouth opened and then closed. I laughed. Oh, it just keeps getting better, I said, shaking my head. You did not simply cheat. You created a complete parallel life, lied to me. Lied to him? Is he even aware you were screwing him in a married man's home? Jessica's face was blank, but I noticed it now. Fear. She was afraid because she was no longer just a cheating wife. She was a home wrecker. I took out my phone and held it up. You know, I believe Ryan deserves to know the truth. Jessica lunged at me. I jumped back just in time, giggling as she clawed at my arm, attempting to get the phone from my grasp. David, don't you dare, she screamed. Panic filled her voice for the first time. Or what? I challenged. Are you going to lie some more? Cheat some more. Oh, you have already done everything you could to damage this marriage. Now it is my time. I touched on the screen to bring up the number. Jessica's face went crazy. I swear to God, if you call him, I will dial. She gasped. Then anarchy ensued. Jessica lost it. The moment I pressed the dial, she lunged at me like a rabid beast, fingers grabbing for my phone, her nails raking against my arm. I yanked it away, stepping back, but she persisted. David, stop! She screamed, panicked eyes. There's a real panic. Not anger, not a nuisance, fear. I avoided another desperate grip with my thumb, hitting the speaker button. The ringing boomed throughout the room. One ring, two. Jessica screamed, shouted, and sprang again, this time throwing her entire body at me. I wasn't prepared. Her shoulder smashed into my chest, throwing me back. My grasp on the phone loosened for only a second, but it was enough. She took it from my grasp and tossed it across the room in one rapid motion. Crack! The phone smashed against the wall and landed on the floor. The screen flickers before going black for a second. Everything became silent. I just stood there and stared at my damaged phone, stunned. Was she truly just before I could react? Jessica turned toward me, gasping like a cornered animal. You're such a childish, vengeful little... I started laughing, but not because it was hilarious, because that was insane. Wow. I shook my head and rubbed my temples. I knew you were a liar and a cheater, but now you're completely nuts. Her eyes flared. You are the one attempting to ruin my life. Oh, what about your life? I stepped forward and shouted. Are you serious? Jessica, you ruined my life. You humiliated and mistreated me, threw away all we achieved, and are now sobbing because you don't want to face the repercussions. She crossed her arms, lips twisting. David, you are so pathetic. You think phoning Ryan would hurt me? I smiled. It's really cold. No, I simply wanted to watch you squirm. God, was she squirming. Jessica rolled her eyes as if she hadn't just had a complete tantrum 2 seconds ago. Whatever. You're being silly. I am not leaving tonight. So, get over it. And with that, my patience shattered. Fine. I spoke, my voice suddenly becoming calm. Stay. She blinked. What? I moved closer, bending in and dropping my voice just low enough to send shivers down her spine. Stay. Sleep in our beds. Hell, invite Ryan back for a second round. But know this, I am done playing polite. Jessica opened her mouth, but I had already walked away. Do you suppose you saw me angry? I spoke over my shoulder. Jessica, you have no idea what happens next. And for the first time since I caught her, she appeared afraid, because she should be. I did not sleep. I did not even try. I sat downstairs in the darkness. My head was filled with wrath, betrayal, and something sharp and electric that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Jessica was still upstairs, in my home, still acting as if she had a right to be here. I considered leaving, getting a hotel, crashing at a friend's apartment. But while I sat there, the thought of her sleeping blissfully under my roof while I was forced to leave made my fury boil. She was now the intruder. She was the one who needed to leave at some point. I must have slept off, since I awoke to the sound of movement upstairs. The first rays of sunlight were filtering through the blinds. The clock showed 6:14 a.m. Jessica was awake. I pushed off the couch, stretched my painful muscles, and smiled. It was time to begin her morning. Right? I made coffee, only 1 cup for me. I cooked breakfast for myself. I sat at the table, leisurely eating and relishing each bite as I heard Jessica's footsteps on the stairs. She emerged in the doorway, her hair unkempt and her robe loosely pulled about her. Her gaze shifted to the sole plate of food, then to me. You did not make me any? She asked, her brow furrowed. I had a long sip of coffee. Nope. She looked at me as if she couldn't believe I had the audacity to treat her like she deserved. I slumped back in my chair. What's the plan for today, Jess? Meeting up with Ryan? Or is there another mystery man waiting in line? Her nostrils flared. You are such an ass. I shrugged. No. See? An ass would have thrown you out the moment I caught you. Me? I am offering you the courtesy of packing your own belongings before I do it for you. Jessica rolled her eyes but said nothing. Instead, she strolled over to the coffee pot, grabbed a mug, and began pouring herself some. I allowed her. I waited for her to take a large sip. Then I spoke lightly. By the way, you may want to get tested. Jessica froze. The coffee mug halted in midair, her fingers holding the handle too tightly. What? I speared a piece of bacon with my fork, took a slow bite, and soaked up the pure dread in her eyes. You have heard me? I stated it with a silky, smooth voice. I hope Ryan has been careful, or anybody else you've been screwing. Jessica slapped the mug on the counter. That is not humorous. I tilted my head. Who is joking? In 5 seconds, her face expressed a dozen various emotions. Shock came first, followed by fury, and then something else. Something that resembled actual terror. I rose up, stretched lazily, and grabbed my keys from the countertop. Anyway, have fun with it, I said, walking towards the door. I have some errands to run, David, she called after me, her voice wavering. David? What the hell are you saying? Are you serious? He grinned at her. Big cold finale. Perhaps you should have considered that before letting any random dude creep between your legs. Then I walked out the door and left Jessica standing there, shaking since I had driven aimlessly for a while. My fingers drummed against the steering wheel, my mind racing at 100 mph. I was not only angry anymore, I was calculating. Jessica was finally afraid. And that. It was wonderful. She wanted to play games. Fine, let us play. I parked outside a cafe, ordered a black coffee, and took out my spare phone, the one she did not smash. He was still logged onto our shared accounts. Jessica believed she was smooth, but she was actually lazy, sloppy, and worse, arrogant. She never bothered to hide her traces adequately. She thought I was too naive, too trusting, and too much of a nice spouse to really probe deep. She was wrong. I opened our phone records again and scrolled through the same mysterious number. The person she called nearly every night. The one she texted at 2 a.m. The one she attempted to remove from her past. Ryan. I copied and put the number into a reverse lookup website, then waited. Seconds later, a name appears. But it wasn't Ryan. It was Michael Reynolds. I frowned. Who the hell was Michael Reynolds? I went to social media, entering the name into Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn bingo. His profile flashed up. Michael Reynolds, the Seven Sisters personal trainer, works at Apex Fitness. I just stared. She cheated on me using a personal trainer cliché. I went over his photos. Young and fit with an arrogant grin. Shirtless gym selfies. The type of guy who flexes in the mirror after a workout and believes protein shakes are personality. However, something else stood out. What about his girlfriend? There she was, tagged in posts and smiling next to him. Long-term connection, lots of couple shots. My grin widened. Oh, this has gotten fascinating. I tapped on the girlfriend's profile and saw a Carter 22 nursing student. I slumped back in my seat. My head is already spinning with possibilities. Jessica did not only cheat, she assisted another cheater, and something told me Anna had no idea. I drank my coffee. Then I selected message. Hello, Anna. We don't know each other, yet I think we should talk. That it did not take long. Anna responded within minutes. Who is this? I could have eased her in. It could have softened the blow. But why the heck would I? Jessica did not deserve mercy. Neither did Michael. I am David. My wife, Jessica, has been sleeping with your boyfriend. I watched as type bubbles appeared, then gone, then reappear, then nothing. Silence. I reclined back in my seat and sipped my coffee. Either she was in denial, or she was already putting things together. She took a full 5 minutes to respond. You are lying, I smiled. I enjoyed it when cheaters misjudged me. Check his phone records, texts, and late-night exercises. Jessica's number is all on them. Another extended pause followed. I do not believe you. I exhaled. Fine. You want proof? I'll give you proof. I opened up my cloud backups. Jessica thought she was slick, but she never signed out of her texts on our shared iPad. I had screenshots. I mailed everything. Texts, calls, photographs, and dates. Jessica said, God, I wish I could spend the entire night with you. Michael will reply shortly, sweetheart. I detest sneaking around, but she won't know. Jessica David is completely oblivious. I swear I could get a message cut off. Michael LOL. I cannot wait to meet you tomorrow. Wear the thing I like. I looked at the screen, feeling the same searing hatred in my chest. Anna eventually replied, Oh my God. I smirked, then followed another message. Meet me now. Oh, things were about to get better. I emailed Anna the location to a small diner on the outskirts of town. We are on neutral ground, somewhere we could discuss. By the time I arrived, she was already waiting. She looked precisely like the photos. Petite and blonde, clad in nurse scrubs, as if she had just arrived from work. But what stood out most? Her expression. She was not crying. She was not hysterical. She was infuriated. I sat into the booth across from her and set my coffee down. Anna. She did not waste time. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her how I found Jessica in our bed with Michael, how she attempted to gaslight me. You can blame me. Act as if I was overreacting. How she lied for several months, sneaking around behind my back as I paid for everything. I trust her. I love her like an idiot. Anna listened without blinking. Then she took out her own phone, scrolling over messages. He contacted me 2 hours earlier, saying he was heading to the gym. I scoffed. Let me guess. Late session. Her jaw stiffened. She turned the screen to face me. Michael. A long day. Going to do a late exercise and then crash. Love you, babe. I shake my head. A textbook. Anna put her phone down. I took a slow breath. Then she smiled, but it wasn't her usual smile. It was sharp and calculated. Dangerous. Let's ruin them, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. She leaned in. I don't just want to break up with Michael. I want to burn his entire universe down. If Jessica really wants him, let's make sure she gets all of him. The unemployed were broke. Dumped version. I liked where this was headed. Anna drummed her nails on the table, contemplating. Then her smile broadened. What if we made their affair public? Now she had my complete attention. Public? How? I asked. She tilted her head. Do you still have access to Jessica's telephone records? I grinned. Every single one. Perfect. She explained that I had access to Michael's work. Group conversation. I almost choked on my coffee. No. Oh, absolutely, she replied, her eyes shining. His boss, co-workers, acquaintances, and even a few of his clients. They all think he's a respectable fitness coach. Let's see what happens when they figure out he's a lying, cheating piece of garbage. I sat back, processing. This wasn't just vengeance. This was wartime. And I went all in. Let's do it, I said, and his grin became razor keen. Good, because I've already made a plan. Anna was a genius. She was not here to cry, plead for explanations, or lament the end of her relationship. She desired devastation, and I was delighted to assist her plot. Beautifully simple. Step 1. Leak everything. Anna was in Michael's universe. She had access to his job, group chat, personal Instagram account, and clients. So she collected everything I gave her. Texts, calls, images, and screenshots of hotel receipts began dropping like bombs. First, she forwarded the communications to Michael's supervisor. Then he joined the gym's group chat. Then he approached a number of his female clientele, whom he was overly cordial with. Finally, she openly tagged him on Instagram with the caption, "Take care, women. This personal trainer specializes on full-body exercises. Simply ask my ex-friend, Jessica." Step 2. Expose Jessica, while Anna engulfed Michael's life. I went to work on Jessica. I wasn't just going to kick her out. I was going to embarrass her first. That night, we had a family gathering. My parents, her parents, siblings, and acquaintances. The house is full. Jessica assumed I was keeping things quiet. She assumed I was going to let her slip away with her reputation intact. She was wrong. Just before supper, I stood up, raised my glass, and grinned. Everyone. I said, I just wanted to express how much I appreciate you all being here. And of course, a special toast to my lovely wife, Jessica. She froze. Her eyes flicked mine warily, as if she had understood something was wrong. I swirled the wine, dear. No wine tonight. Or is it because you were on medicines for gonorrhea after your cruise? The room exploded. Gasps. People were taken aback. Jessica choked on the drink. Her mother's hand shot to her mouth. Her father appeared deadly. Jessica shot up from her seat. David, what the hell is wrong with you? I smiled. Oh, I understand. Perhaps the fact that I found my wife cheating on me in our bed with her personal trainer. There is no more sound. Then wait. What? I glanced to Jessica's mother, who appeared to be about to faint. Oh yes, your precious little daughter. She's been messing around for months, and let me tell you, she wasn't very good at disguising it. Jessica's face turned red. David, stop it! I ignored her. But do not worry. She isn't alone in this. Her partner Michael, the gym rat, has also been cheating. And guess what? His girlfriend found out today. Is that correct, Anna? Jessica's jaw fell. His guess as to who walked in? Anna. She stood at the doorway, arms crossed. She held her phone up high. I'm recording everything, Jessica shouted. Anna smiled sweetly. Oh, do not mind me. Just gathering some footage for Michael's ex-clients. They'll love it. Jessica sprang at her, but I grabbed her wrist. You're not damaging her phone like you did mine. Her breath was ragged, and her entire body shook. You are both insane. I leaned in closer, my voice chilly. No, Jessica, we are simply better at playing your game. She attempted to speak. I tried to find an exit, but there wasn't one. Not anymore. Her parents disowned her on the moment. Michael. He lost his job, clients, girlfriend, and reputation in less than 24 hours. Jessica. No work, no husband, no friends, and no house. And me. I walked away freely. I didn't only get vengeance. I made certain they'd never forget the day they screwed with the wrong man. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.